just talking about pranayama, breathing, for the next quite a bit actually. And we will do a breathing technique or two, and then we will actually be going into our closing and meditation. Now, as the sun starts to crest over there, it's going to get hot in here, so if we do get hot, please let me know, especially if it's on your back, or just get up and close them is also fine. So, pranayama in your manual starts on page 276. So why pranayama? One of the most profound gifts of the yoga practice is that it invites practitioners to have an immediate visceral experience of their breath. Breath awareness is one of the most important elements of yoga practice. While yoga poses have been around for 500 years, pranayama or breath work has been a part of the yoga practice for thousands of years. Pranayama and the nervous system, so a little bit of anatomy here. In the last 50 years, we have started to have a better understanding of the role that breath can play in stress relief and well-being. Although we can't reach into our bodies and control our heart rate, we can consciously control our breathing. By controlling our breathing, we have the power to down-regulate our nervous system, shift out of stress, and support our health and wellness. As yoga teachers, helping our students have a deeper relationship with their breath can profoundly change their ability to cope with stress, anxiety, and depression. By learning to teach pranayama, you're helping students to access one of the most potent gifts of the yoga practice. It's something they'll be able to use not just on the mat, but in their lives. On page 278, you're going to take 5 minutes or less and journal about what is your relationship with your breath? How does your breath serve you? So just take about 5 minutes or less. Something down there. So what is prana? Has anybody never heard that word before?
I've heard the word,
Okay.
but I'd have to look there and tell you what it means.
Okay. So what do we think it is?
I did read it, so.
Okay, so what is it, Kelly?
Life force, animating energy, spirit.
Yeah, so there's different people will define it differently. So some might just say prana is your life force. Some might say prana is breath. That which animates us. Aliveness. Spirit. So it's not usually all of these things. Usually you're describing it by one. So which one resonates for you? Maybe circle it or write it down in your own words. The word for breath and spirit in many cultures is the same, which reinforces the connection between the two. Yoga philosophy understands that there's more to us than meets the eye. Since the Upanishads, yoga philosophy has taken an interest in the more subtle layers of the human experience, such as the energetic body. Pranayama is composed of two words, prana, life force, and yama or ayama. We aren't really sure if it's yama or ayama because the a at the end of prana gets conflated with the next word. So because lots is lost in translation, we don't really know whether it's yama or ayama, but yama means to restrain or control. Ayama means to extend. And we do both of those things when we're looking at pranayama. We might hold the breath, restrain it, control it, or we might work on extending it. So it really could mean either of those two things. Pranayama may be defined as restraint or extension of the breath for the purpose of moving energy in the subtle body. Prana can be understood as the literal breath, but also as the life force that animates our bodies. By controlling our breath, we can begin to control and regulate this energy. This might sound kind of fancy, but really it's very practical. Certainly you felt this before. Your breath is a direct reflection of your physical and emotional experience. When you're upset versus when you're calm, your breathing's a little different, right? You can change your experience of your body by simply taking a deep breath. Anybody ever had to do that? Right?
Every day.
Sometimes we do that. I have caught myself doing this, dealing with one of my teenagers in particular. And I just go, and then they're like, what's up with you? I'm like, oh, I'm just breathing, doing some yoga over here without even realizing it. Because it is a way that our body releases.
We think we should close the curtains. I can't believe he's finally cutting that.
I guarantee you he's not cutting that. He is just cutting along the sidewalk. He is just doing one strip along the sidewalk. Almost guarantee you he's not cutting that. Although, now he's walking through and pulling out stakes. No, he's just repositioning the stakes. Never know. We're going to leave that alone.
They teach
I'm
at
sorry
work.
for interrupting.
Sorry?
They teach breathing techniques at work.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they
Oh,
have
do
to.
they really? Yeah, that makes sense.
So we can conserve air when we get
Mhm.
into something, and if you get into a spot, that you don't waste all your air.
Yeah.
Or especially panicking.
Yeah, talk to
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
That's
makes a lot of sense.
Yes, teaching those you guys how to do that.
Yep.
Well, I do that all the
You've
time.
had a good experience with that, I see.
Well, they do. Some of them don't believe it, but you know what? If they've really swung around.
Yep.
They watch the difference in air usage in the bottles.
Okay, that's cool
That-
that you
then
actually
they
can
can
see
see it.
a actual
Oh,
visual
wow.
representation. I like it.
That's
pretty
interesting.
awesome. Pranayama may be defined as, we just said that, I literally said that.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, I think it's actually in my notes twice.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, wait a second, what am I reading? Sorry, apologies. So historical context of pranayama. So the Vedas, some scholars trace the origin of pranayama to the Vedas, the oldest Hindu texts, which are at least 3,000 years old. The Vedas were long chanted hymns. Scholars speculate that the breath control necessary for this chanting may have led to an understanding that the regulated breathing could create altered states of awareness. Yeah. The Upanishads describes the 5 koshas, the sheaths of human experience, one of which is the energetic body, and it's called the Pranayama kosha. Classical yoga of Patanjali, there we go, Patanjali, I'm going to get it the first time one of these days. By the time of classical yoga, in the time of Patanjali, suggested pranayama is a way to still the fluctuations of the mind. Pranayama is one of the limbs on the Eightfold Path. Hatha Yoga, by the time of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika in the Middle Ages, yogis had developed a sophisticated understanding of the subtle body or energetic body. They developed many sophisticated breath techniques to control the subtle energy of the body and move it intentionally through the body. For Hatha Yoga yogis, the real point of yoga was to use the breath in these practices to move into meditation and experience a deep spiritual connection. Modern yoga, in Ashtanga Yoga, the use of free breathing using Ujjayi breath is used concurrently with asana to create a moving meditation experience. So flow yoga is like this as well. We inhale, do something, we exhale, do something. Inhale, do something, exhale, do something. So we're literally following the breath. Before this time, pranayama and asana were practiced separately. Modern flow and power practices often use Ujjayi as a component of the practice. In other traditions like Iyengar, pranayama is still separated from asana. Subtle body and pranayama. Prana is said to travel via the nadis, the subtle energy channels through the body. There are said to be 72,000 nadis in the body. Just like we have a physical cardiovascular system of arteries and veins, so too do we have a subtle body where energy flows similar to the Chinese meridian theory. The 3 primary nadis are I'm struggling with these words today. Sushumna. Sure, we'll go with that. Anybody want to give a stab at that word? We'll go with that. The central nadi that travels along the spine. Ida is the feminine channel that runs along the left side of the body. And Pingala is the masculine channel that runs along the right side of the body. Pranayama is the practice of controlling and directing prana through these energy channels through breathing techniques for the purpose of quieting the mind. Different breathing techniques also have physiological impacts on the body. Although we manipulate our prana by controlling the breath, pranayama is about more than a breath exercise. Its deeper purpose is to move the subtle energy of the body. So what are benefits of pranayama?
It can be calming, relieve stress.
Stress relief, calming, yeah.
Lower your blood pressure.
Yeah.
Probably lower cortisol in the body.
Yeah, if we lower stress, we're going to lower cortisol for sure.
That'd be good on the organs.
Yep.
Keep you in the moment.
Sure. Yeah. Quiets the mind. Relaxation and stress relief. So even deeper into just relaxation and stress relief, it actually can initiate a parasympathetic nervous response, get us into that rest and digest state, which can counteract anxiety as well as stress, lowers heart rate, decreases stress hormones, cortisol, and encourage the body's healing response as well. Breath awareness may equal self-awareness. If we can be more mindful of what's happening with our breath, we become more mindful in general. It can facilitate meditation, so it helps to get us ready for meditation. Breathwork can massage the internal organs. As the diaphragm descends, it's pushing on other organs, right? So if we're breathing deeply enough to affect other organs, we are actually having an impact on digestion and other internal organs. We can become aware of and move the subtle energy of the body. When it is skillfully done, it can create a deep state of meditation and lead to samadhi, integration. So when might we teach pranayama?
Well, we do it
centering at the beginning or even grounding.
At the end of a class.
Sure,
Finish it.
absolutely. If it's flow, probably throughout the class, right? Because as much as we say, we're gonna keep this breath all the way through, people don't remember it. You have to remind them throughout class, are you still doing your Ujjayi breath? It really can be taught at any portion in the class. Usually it's beginning or end. Flow would be going all the way through. It could also be a completely standalone, like you could literally do a breathing practice class or a workshop on pranayama, right? So it could be standalone. Any other times? Typically it's best to teach pranayama seated, but I do teach it lying down in hatha classes when we're starting, just breath awareness usually, not usually a specific technique. Generally, especially if you're doing anything where you want them to like plug a nostril, that sort of thing, that's easier to do when they're seated. When they're lying down, that's kind of weird. Just like meditation, if somebody is coming to a more active class, they're not looking to just sit and breathe. So if you're going to introduce it in that style of class, that's something to discuss with the location you're teaching. Is it even appropriate for the location you're teaching? Is it something that your studio manager wants, etc.? And also ask your class about it, or introduce a really small amount of it, and then just like meditation. How'd that feel? Do we want to do a little bit more of that and build up to it if you're looking to add it into a class that isn't used to that? Okay. What do we think the pranayama experience should be like, or the tone of that portion of your class?
Relaxed, gentle.
Okay.
Accessible, so something, how one person breathes may not be how somebody else breathes, so encouraging people to find that space for themselves.
Yeah. I think we were talking about that earlier this week, weren't we, Kelly?
Yeah, I did a meditation and the person was counting the breath and I'm like, I can't hold my breath that long. And then she wanted to extend it and I'm like, okay, I'm out of this meditation. This one is not for me.
Too long, oh my God.
Yeah. The key point is pranayama should never create anxiety or stress in the body. So different breathing techniques. Anytime we're asking somebody to restrain, hold their breath, that could cause anxiety. We do not want to create that. So that is something very important to communicate with your class. Anytime we're doing this breathing technique, feel free to return back to a normal breath at any time. This should not feel stressful. However you want to word it, and you may have to remind them of that as well. Using some of that permissive language, if it feels good to you, you might consider holding your breath at the top for half the count, or however you want to word it. Never demanding anything when it comes to breathing techniques, because it can create that anxiety. Yes, generally we want it to be calming. However, I have also used this after a morning class as an energizing breath.
Yeah.
Or before an evening class, I will use a specific technique as an energizing breath. Because if people are walking in, you're like, ooh, the whole energy is like, oh. All right, we're supposed to be doing some pretty active stuff tonight. Let's get that energy up. And so if we can breathe specifically through the right nostril, it's a heating breath, and that energizes us. Versus if we breathe through the left nostril, so if everybody's super amped up and like it's supposed to be like a yin class, I'm like, all right, everybody plug your right nostril and breathe in through your left.
I sometimes do the energizing one in the afternoon where I'm sitting at my computer all day because I'm starting to feel sluggish,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm like, okay, I need to do some breathing.
Right. So that's that feminine, masculine nadis. So breathing in one side is cooling, breathing in the other side is heating. Remembering which is which is fun. I had a apprentice in a yoga class once, and this lady made me laugh so hard. She was a little ball of energy. She was like in her 70s, and she was just learning to teach yoga. She'd been a fitness instructor forever, and she was just like this bouncing off the wall person, right? That was her personality, always had been. So I was a little concerned about how she was going to do in a yoga class, as was she. And so I said to her, I said, okay, you're gonna start your class teaching left nostril breath. And you're mirroring them. Why?
To calm her and
Yes,
guys.
sir.
Yeah, so sorry, I told her to teach right nostril
Yes.
breath, but she was doing left. Because her class was in the morning, so they could have used a little extra energy. So doing that right nostril for them got them ready to go. And the left nostril calmed her the heck down. So she was able to settle into teaching it. Now, when you're teaching a breathing technique, I don't always require you to mirror because we want you to have the same effect as they're having. But in that case, it was beneficial. That worked very well because it got them where they needed to be and calmed her down so she could settle into what she was doing. So, can be used very well. Pranayama always begins with breath awareness. It's a subtle body practice that requires sensitivity and calm. Without inner body awareness, pranayama misses the point. So we don't just directly go into, okay, now we're gonna hold our breath and da da da. Just start to notice your breath. How does your breath feel? Is it long? Is it short? Is it easy? Is it hard? What have you? Bring awareness to the breath first. What are some good guidelines to teaching pranayama safely and effectively? What do we think?
If it feels good to in your body.
Yeah.
When you're doing a particular one, that maybe the hold one or the box breath.
Yeah.
If it doesn't feel good, or the sips. If they don't like it, just keep their breathing where it's comfortable for them.
Yeah. Empower students to stop and adjust if they feel stressed or anxious. Yeah. What else?
Placing the body in a position of safety. I mean, I don't know that breath it might affect somebody differently, but if they became lightheaded or seated on something like a chair.
Yeah, it is something to consider, for sure. There are definitely some breathing techniques that can make people very lightheaded. There's actually one that was recommended to be taught in this training, and I won't be teaching it because it makes me super lightheaded, and I'm not teaching other people to do it. It's called Kapalabhati breath. Are you familiar with that one? Like, no thanks, not my thing. If you want to look it up, go look it up, practice it on your own. I'm not going to
Is
try to
that the
teach
one
it to
they
you.
use to conserve the oxygen?
No, because
You'd probably use it all up in that one.
yeah, we just use box
Oh.
breathing. So you hold the breath, hold
Yes.
it, take another sip, then exhale.
Right.
You just keep going in a box.
So we want them to be safe, we want to empower them to take breaks or stop, etc. What else?
Sit comfortably.
Create a calm space. In general, we want them to have a calm space where they can feel relaxed. Be clear, teach slowly. If you're rambling through the instructions really quickly or you're trying to count things for them, your count is going to be different than their count.
I always find that, pretty good before, and then they're doing something different, that I must be a slower counter.
Yeah.
There can be times where counting it can be helpful, but they're rare. Mostly I ask people to count their own. So if I'm going to teach like a box breath, I usually start them with an equal breath. Count how long your inhale takes, try to match your exhale to the same count. Whatever your count may be. Then if I'm going to take them to the box, I will ask them, if it feels comfortable, let's add a pause at the top of the inhale for about half of the length of count as the inhale. And then exhale for the same longer count. And then hold at the bottom for half the count. And then if it's comfortable, you might extend to have the same count all the way around. Because technically a box breath is supposed to be equal all the way, even in the holds, but for a lot of people, that's too long of a hold. That will cause that anxiety reaction. So I usually stick with half the count, but you can always offer them to extend the count if it's comfortable for them. Always start and end with a natural breath. So you start with that natural breath, observe it, notice how it feels, etc., but also finish with a natural breath. So take a few cycles of regular breath after. Should anyone not practice pranayama?
If you have a deformity or it causes pain or I don't know, deviated septum, who knows?
Like an asthmatic or COPD.
COPD, they actually probably should be practicing it
Okay.
because it would actually be better for them. There are specific techniques that would be better for them to practice than others. I actually had a client that came to me just for breathing because it's COPD. And so I had to look up, I'm like, all right, which one should I be doing? Which one shouldn't I? And I was honest with them. I said, you know what, that is not my specialty. Well, I just want to breathe. You're a meditation yoga instructor. You can teach me how to breathe. I'm like, oh, okay. So, and it did help. So it was good. Generally, pranayama is very safe for just about anybody. The cautions lie around asthmatics specifically and very pregnant women because their diaphragm is getting like compressed. So their diaphragm just can't move quite as nicely.
That being said, I need a killer to be breathing when she was in labor.
Right, so there are some breathing techniques that can be good for
Because I
them.
asked you which one would be good, and when we did those, and I kept her home, and the hospital said, I'm surprised you weren't here earlier. My mom had me doing breathing.
Calmed her right down.
It did.
Right. All right. Parts of the breath. So there are 3 parts to the breath. Can you think of what they are?
Inhale, pauses, and exhale.
Yeah. Is it in your book?
Is
There
it-
you go.
I didn't see it in there, I just thinking about what I'm talking about.
There you go. That's exactly what it is. The inhalation, also called puraka, the exhalation, rachaka, and the after inhale suspension and after exhale suspension, they actually have separate names, antara kumbhaka and bahya kumbhaka.
Where is that in the book?
I don't know that that's
Oh,
in your book.
282.
It's in your book?
Oh, I'm not on.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if the Sanskrit names were in there or not, but
Yeah, they are.
different pranayama techniques will use these component parts in different ways. They have different effects on the body depending on how they are used. All right. Let's head over to our mats and sit comfortably in our mats so we can find a nice long tall spine for some of these.
Why should you do it on an empty stomach?
Well, it is going to affect your diaphragm. Honestly, I've never had an issue one way or the other, so it's not something I generally think about. But if somebody has digestion issues, think IBS, things like that, if they have a very full belly and then their diaphragm's pressing down on it, that could be very uncomfortable. So in general, technically, yoga is supposed to be practiced on an empty stomach as well.
Oh,
Yeah. So, does it need to be? Obviously not, because we don't always do that. But that is kind of, it's the same thing as some people will say, you shouldn't drink during the yoga practice. Has anybody heard that one? Yeah. Anybody know why it's recommended not to drink during the yoga practice? Cools the body down, yes. So we are trying to create heat in the body, and then when you drink, we're cooling off that heat. So, that's, oh no, sit however you're comfortable. This is just comfortable for me right now.
Fair enough.
Okay, so let's find a nice long tall spine. Sit however you're comfortable. You can have your eyes open, closed, whatever is good. If they are open, just soften the gaze down a little bit. Just draw attention to your breath. Nice deep breaths all the way in, all the way out. Notice how your breath feels. Notice what's expanding as you inhale. Notice what's relaxing on the exhale. And when you're ready, begin to find a count of 4 on the inhale as well as a count of 4 on the exhale. breath return back to natural, normal for you. Taking a few natural breaths, not counting, not controlling. Notice how you feel. Now we're going to come back to another counted breath. Our inhale is going to remain 4. Our exhale is going to be extended as much as double the inhale. If that is not comfortable, just go a little longer. So we'll still inhale for 4 when you're ready, exhaling for somewhere between 5 and 8 counts. Continue with the inhale for 4 and exhale for up to 8. Cycle your arm, allow your breath to return back to natural, normal for you. Taking a few natural breaths before one more technique. Notice how you feel. More natural breaths. Then when you're feeling ready, we're going to switch to a longer inhale and a shorter exhale. So our inhale will be for 8 if possible, a little shorter is fine. Exhaling for about half the length of time. Perhaps it's an inhale for 8 and an exhale for 4. If those counts don't work for you, adjust for yourself so the inhale is just a bit longer than the exhale. did we find the equal count? Fairly easy to manage, fairly relaxing, yes? How about the longer exhale? How did that feel?
I feel like that one was expanding my capacity, my air capacity, because I was like taking much deeper breaths than I normally would and getting more air in.
Okay. Yeah?
I found it easier than the longer, inhale.
Okay.
Found it longer exhale was easier.
Okay.
The longer inhale, I started to use the expansion of the belly more, so I think I breathe more up here than I do
Okay.
lower.
Interesting.
It's
Generally speaking, a longer exhale is more calming. It starts to get into that rest and digest parasympathetic system. Did anybody feel particularly stressed by any of the techniques we just did?
I'd say challenged.
Challenged, okay.
Yeah. They calm down, but they initial longer ones were maybe feel very easy initially.
Right. So I personally find trying to inhale for 8 a little stressful. For me, it's too long. Now, yes, I gave you permission to do shorter. I had to give myself that permission again, because what I found was I was inhaling for about 6 and then I was holding for the last 2 counts because I couldn't inhale anymore. But I'm type A, as we've all discovered. So I was trying to inhale for 8 and I couldn't. So generally speaking, we want our pranayama to be calming, to be relaxing, because we're stressed out enough anyway in day-to-day life. So we don't want to necessarily add that. But what is the exception to that rule? When did I tell you that I do use a more invigorating breath?
To bring energy up.
Yeah, so that might be because it's after, so we had done a really calming, like feet up at the end of a morning class, and I was like, okay, I don't want y'all to go home and have a nap, so let's bring some energy back with the breath, as well as at the beginning, often I will do it in trapeze. We'll do a right nostril breath at the beginning of trapeze, because people are coming in after work and they're just low energy, and okay, let's get a little energy going before we jump into the work. Okay, so those are when I will use an energetic breath, but even then I'm not asking them to count specifically or anything like that. It's usually more just they're breathing in through the right nostril and out through the left, because it's that energizing breath, but it's at whatever count works well for them. So breath suspension, also called retention, is an advanced technique in pranayama and not to be used casually. So our box breath is a fairly advanced technique actually, but for job reasons, that makes sense that you would need to know how to conserve your breath, absolutely. When we hold the breath, the body can freak out. Technical term here. The body just goes like, oh, what? I need to breathe. Because breathing is automatic. We don't control our breathing, generally speaking. It just naturally happens. So our body just kind of goes, I don't want to hold my breath, and that can create anxiety. Generally speaking, holding the breath after the inhale is easier than holding the breath after the exhale, because your body's like, oh yeah, I'm good. I got air in here. I can be calm. That's not always the case. For me, it's the other way around. I find it easier to hold my breath and wait to breathe in. Don't know why. That's kind of backwards, but know that it can go either way. One of the first guidelines is that we should not stress out the body. So if any breath suspension causes stress, it should be immediately discontinued. And breath suspension isn't for everyone. Pregnant women or those who may have limited breath capacity, like asthma or COPD, should not be doing breath retention. Breath suspension, when done properly, should feel calming, not effortful or strained. It's more of a pause than a hold. So if you can use language to say pausing at the top rather than hold your breath at the top, that's a little more calming even than asking them to just stop breathing. When we pause the breath, it's a rare moment of stillness for the body, because we're always breathing in and out. There's always movement in our body to some extent. So that pause might be the most still a body has been in a very long time. It can help our attention move inward and helps us to practice pratyahara, which is the restriction of senses, withdrawal of senses. All right, doing another one. We're gonna practice that retention. Please know that you don't have to hold your breath. So if that is uncomfortable for your body, don't hold it.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. So, get yourself comfortable again. If you need to make any adjustments while you're sitting. Apologies for the lawnmower going off. He did ask, I was like, it just has to be done. I can't pick up the poops anymore because they're buried in the long grass. Please cut the grass. And then he picked up the poops, so bonus, I didn't have to do that either. All right. So finding your nice, tall, comfortable seat, shoulders drop down away from the ears. You can close the eyes or simply soften the gaze. Draw your attention to your natural breath. After your next exhale, begin to find your inhale for 4 and exhale for 4 breath. If it's comfortable for you, after your next inhale, perhaps pause for a count of 2 before exhaling for 4 again. If you wish, you might extend that pause to 4 so that it's an inhale for 4, pause for 4, and exhale for 4. You are welcome to stay with 2 as the pause. Perhaps you choose to add a pause of 2 after your exhale. So maybe you're inhaling for 4, holding for 2 to 4, exhaling for 4, and pausing at the bottom. If it feels comfortable for you to find a 4 count for all sides of our box, you may extend the pause at the bottom of your exhale to 4. If any of these pauses or counts feel forced, return back to a normal breath at any time. find retention of the breath?
But after a while, after the first few, you get into the pattern, but.
Settled in after the first few.
Mhm.
Anybody struggle with the pause at the top or at the bottom?
I think it's fun.
I think it's time. Okay. Notice I started introducing the pause at the top first. So if you are, so I generally do only teach half the length of time for the pause, and I will add it to the top and the bottom right away. But again, giving permission that if the pauses are not comfortable, go back to your equal breath. If you are introducing pranayama for the very first time to a group and you're not sure how they're going to take it, I would recommend, if you're trying to do a box breath, to start with just the pause at the top. Because again, for most people, we're more comfortable with that pause once we've inhaled, because our body doesn't freak out, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm good, I got some air in here, I'm good, I don't need to panic, right? And I started with just a 2 count and gave you the option to extend it to a 4 count. And then I didn't even tell you how long to make your pause at the bottom when I added it in. If it feels good, add a pause at the bottom. Continue with the 4 count in, 4 count top, 4 count side, pause at the bottom. And then I invited you to extend it to a 4 count if that was comfortable, so you're going 4 all the way around. So that is probably the most accessible way to teach that breath technique, to hopefully not freak anybody out. Right? Likely if I was introducing pranayama to a group, I wouldn't start with box breath. I'd probably start with equal breath, and we might do equal breath for a few weeks. And then, we're familiar with this now, we're gonna add a little pause at the top of our breath and add that in and see how it goes, right? And then checking in with people, and maybe if it's a group class, maybe inviting, hey, if anybody didn't enjoy that or had an experience that you'd like to share with me afterwards, please come up and talk. Invite that conversation, because people aren't gonna wanna say in the middle of class that sucked, that freaked me out, right? But one-on-one, they might be like, I was feeling kind of weird about that. Tell me more about that. And then you can explain to them, yes, sometimes our body kind of freaks out because it wants to breathe, right? So you're gonna go with a partner. I don't remember who's gone with who today, so go with somebody you haven't been with a lot today. Yeah? Okay, so one of you is going to be leading a breathing technique and the other one is going to be experiencing it. We are going to stick with, and you can do either a 4 in, 4 out, or a 4 in, 8 out. Okay, you can teach either one of those, whichever you feel comfortable with. Remember, we start with natural breath and we finish with natural breath. So if you would like, maybe one group can go over towards this side again, just so that we're not over talking one another. So yes, either a 4 in, 4 out, or a 4 in, 8 out. Start with natural breath and finish with natural breath. We are not teaching retentions right now. Okay? So you can decide who goes first. And just for 1 to 2 minutes a piece. So we're not doing super long, just 1 to 2 minutes. That was actually all we did when I taught it as well, was 1 to 2 minutes. It might have felt like longer, but it was actually only 1 to 2 minutes. So that's more cycles of breath than you think. I'll just let you know when we're at 2 minutes. We'll make it easy, then you don't have to try and pay attention to that as well.
So 4 in, 4 out, and then a pause at the top.
No pause at all. You're not teaching the pause, you're just teaching 4 in, 4 out, or 4 in, 8 out, whichever one you prefer.
Is the
Start?
Sure.
Okay, I'll do this to
I
you.
can do it, I gotta get in.
So sit comfortably and close your eyes, and just have your spine nice and tall. When you're ready, take a deep breath in on the count of 4. When you exhale, exhale on the count of 4. Noticing the sensation you feel as you count to 4 inhaling, and matching that 4 on the exhale.
switch now?
They're still just finishing, we'll start the timer together in a moment.
So relaxed.
Just gonna give a little bit of feedback.
I don't know,
Yes,
this
you'll
is
probably
switch.
not this natural.
Probably.
I was noticing when I was doing it earlier that my eyes were watering, and I noticed Stacy's were just there, so that
Yeah.
matched.
so sad.
I have not run into eyes watering during pranayama before, so I'm not sure. That might be something to look up and see if that's a thing. I mean, anything's possible,
Yeah.
right? We are all connected. All right, so next partner goes and starting the timer for 2 minutes. Remember to start with natural, finish with natural. Away we go.
Nice, relaxed.
Close your eyes, or just soften your gaze. Gently tell us smile, shoulders very back. Just breathe naturally. Pay attention to your breath. Start with this, just notice it. Now we're going to count 4, breathing in. And count 4, breathing out. Just noticing your face.
To bring them back.
Let's return to the normal breathing. That is for you. Showing your bigger fingers. It's longer when you're the teacher.
Speak to that in a minute.
I could have gone to sleep.
I'll get a second calling.
All right, come on back over. So Margaret made a comment that it's longer when you're the teacher.
Yeah.
Absolutely it is.
I
Honest
noticed
to
that.
God, that was the hardest part of starting to teach yoga for me because I came from a fitness background where my mouth does not stop. You guys have all taken my classes. Shavasana at the end of a class, trying to shut my mouth and not say anything for a few minutes, that's hard.
Yeah, that's like, I kept feeling I should say something else to her instead of just letting her do it.
Yeah. Embrace the silence. Did you feel like you needed a verbal cue?
No, but I don't know if that's because you were already practicing it. But
Yeah.
I responded to her verbal cues.
Yeah, right? So it's not necessarily going to hurt to add in a verbal cue, but we also have to learn to embrace that silence and to let them be in the moment, because our verbal cue may pull them out. It may have the opposite effect of what we want it to have. So when I am teaching a meditation or something that does have some silence in it, or a yin class where there's a lot of silence and you're holding, that's the hard part, is keeping my mouth shut. But I have to observe my room and see see when I need to offer. So if somebody's fidgeting or moving around in the pose, that's when I need to give that verbal anchor to them because they're wandering and they're like, oh, I'm really uncomfortable now. So maybe inviting them to slowly and mindfully move themselves. You would see the same thing in a pranayama, right? If somebody's getting really fidgety or you see them kind of like, their eyes are open and they're starting to dart around. Okay, they need an anchor, they need to, but if they're kind of, you can, because if you're really observing, you can actually see the expansion and the deflation, right? So you can see if they're doing what you're asking, if you're being really mindful. So if you're seeing somebody who's now hyperventilating, okay, might need to say something, or if you're seeing the opposite and they're like almost falling asleep, might need to say something different, right? So we're going to do that one more time, but only for 1 minute a piece this time, and each of you is going to teach the room. For a minute, just a minute, so it's a short one, although it might still feel long. So again, you can stick with the 4 and 4 or the 4 and 8 if you would like to explore a different amount. I'm going to say let's stay away from retention because we don't have time to get the count when we're only doing it for a minute, so we'll leave the retention out of it. But we will do, you can do 4 and 4, 4 and 8, or if you want to play with a different number to see how that feels, be my guest. Anybody like to go first? You go first? All right, so I'll just ask everybody to kind of turn and face the teacher rather than shifting our mats around every time. All right, when you're ready.
Okay, sitting comfortably, everybody. Closing through the eyes or gazing softly down. Notice your natural breath. And when you're ready, as you inhale, count to 4. And when you exhale, match that count of 4. Noticing if you're counting fast or slow and how it feels. Inhaling on 4 and exhaling on 4. When you're ready, return to your natural breathing, whatever that is for you. Allow yourself to slowly move your fingers and wiggle your toes, and when you're ready to open your eyes,
How did we do? What do we think went really well there?
Just a good direction to how the breath might feel in your own body, which is nice.
Yeah, so bring awareness to how that actually felt. Are you counting fast? Are you counting slow? That's sometimes interesting to think about, right? So when we're not actually saying, breathe in for 4, 3, 2, 1, they might be going, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? So we don't necessarily want them to be breathing that fast, but we also don't want to force them to slow down a whole lot. Good tone and clarity in instruction. So it was very clear and easy to follow. Good amount of silence, right? Being okay with that silence. Yeah. Okay, who wants to go next? You could have just spun around first, everybody, it's okay.
Just turn around and face everybody without me waiting.
Okay, away we go.
Alright, so take a nice, round and normal breathing for you. Let yourself centered in the space chin, keep the shoulder relaxed. Nice energy to the spine. Hold the top. And release for 5 minutes. When you're ready, start to connect with your own natural breath. Feel some energy coming back into your fingers, your toes. When you feel ready, open your eyes.
How do we
Look
do?
into my eyes.
Hypnotizing. How do we do? How do we find it?
I'll tell you what's hard. Yes. I don't know how people were doing this full time with
Yeah.
COVID. If you were teaching full time, oh my gosh.
No, you're already
No,
retired.
I've been
anyway.
retired for eons.
It's hard. It's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a big difference. So I would say you were a little bit challenging to hear. You have a very soft tone to your voice, so yes, that can be very relaxing,
But
potentially too relaxing for what you're trying to get, right?
fair enough.
So be mindful of that because you might actually put them to sleep, right? Right? So it's really good. Like, honestly, you need to need your training because you'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Right? You just have the nice tone for it and everything, right? So, but thinking about what do we want our tone to be? There is a time and a place for that really soft tone, and then there's a time and a place for a slightly more directive tone, right? So without being abrasive, we want to keep them alert as we're doing certain practices. Make sense? But very lovely instruction. But being mindful that maybe upping the tone a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll go since you're in a row.
All right. Sounds like a plan. All right. Way to go.
Okay, let's, close your eyes and just soften your gaze. Sit to tall spine. And just breathe as you usually would. Pay attention to your breath. And now, breathe in for 4. And then breathe out for count 4. And counting fast or slow. Okay, then a little bit of movement into your breath to normal. And you keep your breathe. Bring a little bit of movement into your fingers and toes. And open your eyes.
That okay?
Good. Good clear instruction.
Nice relaxing moves.
The one piece of feedback that I would give, we've all been doing this for a little while. If that was my first experience with trying to count the breath, you didn't tell me to continue. You only said it
Oh.
once.
Okay.
Breathe in for 4 and breathe out for 4. So I might have just done it once and then just
Okay.
continued to breathe because I
Yeah.
didn't necessarily know you wanted me to continue with that count. So be mindful of that. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4. Continue with that count if that feels comfortable or however you want them to, so that they know that that's what you're looking for. But again, like everybody else said, nice tone to your voice, easy to follow, clear instruction. Nice job. All right, last but not least, way to go.
Finding a nice comfortable position, closing down through your eyes or softening your gaze. Letting your breathing be natural and normal for you. If it's comfortable for you, maybe bring your attention to our breathing. Breathing in for a count of 4.
liked how you brought attention to the sensation they might be feeling with the breath as well, feeling the expansion and relaxation, right? So there's all these little pieces that you can add and tweak and change a little bit to make it your own. And you'll all find your own style for teaching this type of thing if you choose to teach this type of thing, right? We generally will always teach some form of breath awareness in our classes, but it might simply be breath awareness. That might be as far as you go. As we talked about, pranayama is a pretty powerful tool, so if you can start to put it into your classes more, it can be very beneficial. But it's about your comfort level as a teacher doing it as well. There are lots of really great books on pranayama that you can reach into or look into that will teach you different techniques and what the benefit is. We're going to go through a few different types of pranayama over the course of the training. So I wouldn't suggest it's something you need to dive into right now, but if it's something that you want to dive deeper into later and learn more about it, then highly recommend, because there's a lot of really cool information out there about different breathing techniques and what they're good for. Any aha moments, thoughts, questions about pranayama? We've just scratched the surface now. Okay. So anybody familiar with what bandhas or bandhas are? Locks. Oftentimes bandhas or bandhas are taught with pranayama. We are going to talk about them. We have 2 more pranayama lessons throughout the course of the training, so they're kind of interspersed widely throughout. One of them will cover the locks in the body as well. A lock might be pelvic floor, right? So we often use pelvic floor with the breath. You have bandhas in your hands, in your feet, all of this. So we'll talk about those later as well. So if you kind of hear that somewhere as you, like, I think Margaret, you were saying your Facebook all of a sudden is throwing you yoga stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Because now you've joined the yoga group. Oh, this person must be interested in yoga. Let's send them all the yoga things. So you might start seeing things that you're like, what the heck are they talking about? So if you come across bandhas or locks, energy locks, they're also known as, they are related to pranayama, and we will cover them later as well.
Breathing core with the breathing in.
To an extent, yes,
Okay.
but not fully. So that's core breath. That's a little different. So when we exhale, our pelvic floor should be moving up. When we inhale, pelvic floor should be moving down. If it's doing the opposite of that, that's core dysfunction and something to work on. So slightly different. When we're talking about a lock, we're talking about pulling it in and keeping it while you're doing a breathing technique, that sort of thing.
Oh, I see.
A little bit different, yeah. Okay, we flew through that particular lesson. We might get in a little early tonight. I don't think anybody's going to complain about that, are we? No? Okay, I mean, I could try and keep you longer. But we still have one more to get through. So let's come back to the table. We will end up back over here, but we've been on the floor for a little while, so let's, if you want to, take a quick run to the bathroom if you need to. We got lots of time. Stretch your legs, go for a little longer.
My hip, when we were first doing that, my hip kept bugging me.
Uh-oh.
That's why I straightened my leg.
Yeah.
It's not usually something that bothers me, but for some reason, maybe something